goodness. Oh, my goodness.
Welcome into a special edition of Owl Nation Live, presented by BrandsMart USA. Inside the Kennesaw State University studio, we are excited to have on our new head football coach, Jerry Mack, joining us today. Coach, I know the start of this new job has been tremendously busy, so we're thankful you get to spend some time with us. I mean, this is probably one of the few quiet moments that you've had in your schedule, right?
This is the quietest moment I've had in about probably 10 to 12 days or so.
Mm-hmm. Well, since you started on December 1st, what all has kept you busy, Coach?
Right now, it's just been a whirlwind of recruiting. You know, we have a phrase right now in our building. We talk about all gas, no brakes, and that's what it feels like it's been, just from the transfer portal to the high school recruiting, just getting to know, just the lay of the land more than anything else. It's been a whirlwind, to be honest with you.
I can only imagine. Yeah. So what do you want to set out to accomplish over the next 30, 60, and then 90 days?
Well, I think we got to look at our roster. Right now, that's the most important thing about our program is just the players in the building and just make sure we're doing a great job of captivating that audience and making sure we're doing a great job of letting those guys know exactly who we are and what we're about more than anything else. And then the second part is just the recruiting part, just to make sure we bring a couple of pieces in the building that can help enhance what we already have. I think that's always great to create that competition that we need to be able to have to go out there and compete, throughout the week in this conference or on Saturdays, whatever it looks like. The last thing is just kind of get familiar with the community. I really want to be able to engage our community, engage our fan base, our student body. I think that's going to be a really big important part as we move forward and build this thing the right way.
So it seems like team building, recruiting, and community are big points to you.
They are. They're huge points right now for us. We have a lot of momentum going on right now throughout not only just on campus, but also throughout just the entire country right now. I think a lot of people are starting to realize Kennesaw State is coming. They're starting to realize our brand a little bit, the content that we're putting out, the type of players that we're recruiting and bringing in the building have a national brand. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really important for us right now.
As this goes on, and then we'll enter the new year in 2025, team's going to be back on campus, ready to go for the spring semester and starting off-season workouts. What's your approach and your plan for how you want the team to attack off-season workouts?
We want to be aggressive really in everything we do. This off-season workouts is really about guys getting bigger, guys getting faster, obviously guys getting stronger. But the really thing is just the knowledge base. We have our football school that starts when all the coaches get off the road in February, and we just kind of teach the base fundamentals, not only of our system, but also the game of football. We feel like that's how we teach, reach, and demand guys is to continue to grow and progress our system throughout the entire spring. But that's going to be really important throughout the entire spring is just to making sure they understand what they have to do with their bodies and then the knowledge base they have to be great at this game.
So a football school, so not just enrolling in classes, but then Coach Mack classes too?
Somewhat. We're going to have a whole staff when we come back from the new year in 2025. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be, I tried to make sure that we hired great teachers of the game. That was really important to me, to make sure we got guys from all different aspects, whether it be from college to the professional leagues, in our building, and making sure they understand that these guys need that knowledge. They need that understanding of what it takes to become a great football player.
And it seems like it's important to start that at the beginning of the off-season workouts because it's going to take some time to continue not only learn things about the game, but learn new styles of offense and defense.
It is. It's going to be a totally different style, like everybody else that gets a new coach or a new regime in from offense, defense, and special teams. We want to make sure everybody's singing out the same hymn book. We want to make sure those guys understand the schemes and the techniques that we want in all three phases of the game.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Coach Mack and get to know you. When and what made you fall in love with the game of football?
Oh, man, that's a long story, but I kind of put it in a nutshell. When I first started, I really wasn't a football player. I really was more of a baseball player. As I started to play video games, to be honest with you, that's what got me more intrigued about the game of football. I'm showing my age a little bit, but it was a game called Tecmo Bowl. Back in the day. And I used to play that all the time and got familiar with the players and got familiar with the history of the game a little bit. And that's what kind of piqued my interest. And, that's really what kind of helped me fall in love. I think the second part is probably my dad. To be honest with you, he had always been around the game. He played the game at Arkansas State. He played in the USFL for a little while with the Memphis Showboats, the old Memphis Showboats team. And just being around him, listening to all his stories, listening to his college buddies and professional buddies, that really piqued my interest just to learn more about the game. He was my hero, so I always want to do what your hero is doing.
It's really incredible, Coach, to be able to follow your dad and his love for the game. But he started out with a video game. And it's a serendipitous time in college football, the return of the EA Sports game last year. Yeah. How did you feel about that?
It was cool. I got my check a few years ago when they started distributing check. It wasn't very much, but I got one. But, right around that time, probably when I was in college, is really when that NCAA game really exploded on the scene. And it was always great times, being in the dorm, being all over the place, just playing games with your friends and your buddies. And just to see them bring it back, I think the guys nowadays, they're going to really enjoy it. I brought it for my son this summer as well. So, he couldn't get off the game for a long time.
So now your plans to be in the game for this coming year, Coach?
Some of the recruits, they have already started to make Kennesaw State teams and create themselves. So I think that's always fun when you can kind of do that on your own.
That's really cool, Coach. More importantly, your father and the role that he played. And doing some research, wrote a book with you about his career, and then looking at your career and your start into coaching too. It seemed like for him, getting that college degree from Arkansas State really changed his trajectory in life. How have you seen that play out with high school students that you recruited to see them matriculate through college and that degree change the course of their life?
It's been really fun to see that, the different places that I've been, whether it's been Division II all the way to the SEC, I've been able to touch a lot of first-generation college students. And really, that's what my dad was. He was a first-generation college student. My mom was a first-generation college student. So just seeing how what a college degree is kind of the great equalizer. It gives you an opportunity to go ahead and compete at the highest level in whatever your profession or whatever it is you do. Education, nothing stops. Education is the great equalizer, and it's always going to be that, for forever and ever. And just to see that with those two, and just to see how that helped them change the trajectory of their entire family's life, me and my sister, it's pretty amazing.
And I'm sure you're finding out more about Kennesaw State as you continue to learn about KSU, R2 institution. You mentioned in your press conference introductory here at KSU, almost 50,000 students here. I mean, opportunities are bountiful at KSU for prospective athletes.
It is. Like when you look at our university, walk around our campus, everybody's just amazed. Like I told you, it's a quiet, kept secret. It's a gem, and not only in the state of Georgia, but also in the country. Everybody's amazed when they step foot on campus and they walk through our dormitories and our campus apartments and all the different entities that we have on campus. And I think that's one thing we got to continue to showcase, and we got to continue to bring the light across the country, that we do have some things that are really unique and different than anybody else.
So September 20th is a big date against Arkansas State, right? You just talked about your dad playing there. You've got family members for Arkansas State. I mean, what's the Mack family going to be wearing in that KSU versus Arkansas State matchup?
I can guarantee you 100% the entire Mack family is going to be wearing black and gold.
As they should be.
If they not, they won't have Mack behind their name anymore.
Coach, you got your first head coaching gig at North Carolina Central. Took the Eagles to unprecedented heights, Celebration Bowl, MEAC championships. Looking back in your time in Durham, what did you learn about yourself and being a head coach that's going to help you here at KSU?
I think that kind of started the table of me wanting to be a head coach. More than anything else, I was able to impact a lot of people's lives. I saw what we were able to do as a staff, to be honest with you, in North Carolina Central, how we impacted those young men off the field more than on the field. We had great success on the field. Everybody in that program left with a championship ring and a diploma for the most part. We just put the resources in place. The administration was in alignment with the athletic program. It was just amazing to see what football can do when you have success and everybody comes together and we're really working toward the same goal. The things that we were to do for that university during that time period, you saw the admissions growth. You saw it kind of shoot through the roof. More applications, the exposure that we had from going to the Celebration Bowl, the resources that we were able to create from that was just amazing.
And you touched on those relationships. Are you still able to keep in touch with former Eagles?
No question. My son goes there. My daughter goes there. They will actually be graduates of the school, of the university. But it's really fun. We had a lot of great memories there. It was a lot of great people there, and very similar to KSU, to be honest with you, from a standpoint of just the people in the building. I've had a chance to meet a lot of great people here during my tenure here so far, and I think it's just going to continue to grow and grow.
New head coach Jerry Mack joining us on Owl Nation Live, presented by BrandsMart USA. Coach, shifting gears just a little bit here, but still talking about your background. What coaches have influenced you the most in everything outside the X's and O's that goes into developing a program?
I would say, I've learned so much from so many of the coaches that I've had a chance to work with. Just not just the X and O part, like you said, just off the field. Mike Bloomgren is one that comes to my mind. Just a genuine person, authentic person, always, the person you want to be associated with, want to be in business with. He's been a really great friend, a great mentor for me in my journey as far as coaching. And then there's so many coaches in my past, like Clint Conk or Rick Rose or Rick Comedy. He gave me my first opportunity to coach at the college level as full time. Those guys were all instrumental from a leadership standpoint, from an organization standpoint. I've been able to take bits and pieces from so many different people through my journey, which has really been unique.
And then how about for the X's and O's themselves for the style of offense, defense, and special teams that you want to run here at KSU?
Yeah, what a blessing to get an opportunity to go coach in the SEC and work under Josh Heupel. I mentioned it in my press conference. I mean, he's an offensive genius in my mind. And the structure and the organization that we had at the University of Tennessee, it's going to look and feel very similar here at KSU. Just some of the things that I learned, and some of the people that we're going to be able to bring into the building from that place. Just from a standpoint of defense and special team standpoint, just being aggressive style. I've got a chance to work with a guy named Pete Limbo, who's the head coach at the University of Buffalo right now, like just an elite special teams coordinator. Mike Eckler at the University of Tennessee, once again, another elite special teams coordinator. Blending those two styles, blending those two guys' vernacular and what they bring to the table and being able to put my own twist on it. That's what's going to be really unique about our place. It's going to be a blend of a lot of different things in my journeys.
So for someone, let's say they haven't watched much Tennessee football over the past few years, how would you describe that offense?
Fast. I think fast is probably the best word. At one point in time, while I was there, we led the nation in plays per minute. We're going to continue to try to play fast with some tempo, but also too, I've had experiences in the NFL. I've had experience in the West Coast offense. So just figuring out ways to do a lot of similar things that we did at Tennessee, but putting our own twist on it. We're going to be able to put our own twist on what we do and how we go about attacking things. I want this program to feel like a training ground as well from the X's and O's standpoint of the National Football League. I want guys to be able to come in our program and understand that, hey, look, we're doing very similar things that we did in the NFL. From a just standpoint of how organization standpoint, schematic standpoint, they need to understand that you're going to be trained not only to be a great college football player, but if you do have that opportunity to go to the next level, there's some things that you're going to be able to carry over. That's
really neat, Coach. Why is going fast important to you?
I just think it gives you an opportunity to do something a little bit different than a lot of people in the country do. When you get your cleats in the ground, when you're able to play the game fast, it keeps pressure. It's that attacking style, it's that aggressive style that we always talk about. We always want to be in attack mode, and I just think going fast allows you to be able to do that.
I think the NFL aspect is unique, too, for how you want to try to build out Kennesaw State football. What's an example of something that could look like for an athlete coming here to KSU that they could learn and take away that will help set them up for the next level?
Really, it's going to be more about the X's and O's piece, just the scheme part of it, the vernacular, some of the things that we use, some of the terms that we use. I always made a joke, this one NFL offense is 32 teams. They all kind of use the same vernacular some kind of way as far as in their scheme because it's been preached throughout the history of time. So I think that's one of the things that I want to make sure that those guys understand. How we go about teaching that certain techniques is going to be very similar to the way those guys do in the National Football League. And I want them to make sure they understand that not only will you be developed off the field, you're also going to be developed on the field from a standpoint. You're going to be able to have a jump and an edge on some people when you get a chance to sit down and talk to those general managers and some of those scouts when that time is appropriate.
I love it, Coach. You're coming to us from the Jacksonville Jaguars, where you're the running backs coach for the Jags. What can you take away from your time in the NFL that will help you here at Kennesaw State when it comes to in-game decision-making, clock management? It was new in college football this year, right? The 2-minute timeout, somewhere the 2-minute warning, the NFL, starting to see aspects of the college game mirror more so the NFL. How do you take your experiences in Jacksonville help you as a head coach here?
Yeah, I think it's really more when you talk about the football school aspect, when you talk about spring football, camp season, just teaching guys what situational football looks like. Whether it's 2-minute, whether it's third down, whether it's red zone, all those different situations that you kind of come across in the National Football League. We used a lot of time just constantly teaching that to the players, making sure they understood exactly how we were going to approach those different situations so they could know really as much as coaches in those situations. Obviously, we're coaching, we're in their scheme, we're game planning all the time, but we're not playing. That's the biggest thing. We're not playing the game. So, making sure that the players understand that these situations, high alert, more in tune to what's going on in every situation of the game, every facet of the game is going to be really important.
And then you can play them with a video game and see how well they know it, right?
Look, if we can do that, we can have a lot of fun.
New head coach Jerry Mack joining us on Owl Nation Live, presented by BrandsMart USA. Coach, let's talk about the roster at Kennesaw State University. What characteristics are you looking for as you construct this roster from a tangible and an intangible perspective?
Obviously, we always want to make sure from a tangible standpoint the measurables are where they need to be. We're looking for guys with great length. We're looking for guys with great speed, obviously. But really, to be honest with you, the intangible is something that you really have to dive into and really go into detail about what you're looking for. I talked about a ton about the character, about the work ethic, about the toughness and the smarts that these guys have to have. And that really goes back to the recruiting aspect, making sure that, whether it's the champion or whether it's the high school coach or trainer, making sure those guys understand, as far as our coaches, they making sure they touch bases with those people so they can make sure we understand exactly how to coach the student athlete. Every student athlete isn't the same, so you have to take a different approach sometimes to each one that you end up interacting with, just for the simple fact you want to make sure you're maximizing or able to help that young man maximize his talent. So you have to go deep and just figure out what those intangibles look like, what the mental makeup looks like. That's really going to be important for us as we develop and grow the program and the student.
So you've got to know which buttons to push and win, right?
You do. You really do, because, everybody doesn't respond to certain coaching styles the same way. And, I want to make sure our coaches understand that, and I want to make sure players understand that the coaches are going to approach and attack their style, which helps them the best.
Mm-hmm. Got a fan question from Jacob. So thank you, Jacob, for submitting your question to KSUOwls.com. With so many new coaches trying to build in Conference USA next year, what's your message to convince recruits and potential staff that KSU is the best option?
A couple of things. One, when you look at the location, right? Like being 20 minutes from basically downtown Atlanta, being, 30 minutes from the airport, you can fly anywhere in the country. It's a great hub where you can get anywhere in the country that you want. And then you talk about just from an internship standpoint or for a growth standpoint after football is all over. You're talking about an opportunity for so many businesses, for so many things, and dibble and dab and whatever you want to really do. I think that's really, really big. I think the second thing is just the growth of the university and the growth of the school. Once we get them on campus, it's really an easy sell, to be honest with you. Once you bring them on campus and you realize, hey, this place has 50,000 students, and you get a chance to walk through the campus, you can just see that it's a special place. And then I think the last thing is always going to be about the people in the building. Not just the people in the football building. It's going to be when we take them across campus, when we go to a restaurant, and when they see how people interact with us and see people excited about seeing Kennesaw State football, coaches, players, recruits. I think that's going to be one of the keys.
As you told us about the style play that you want to have for offense, defense, and special teams, with consideration of that, how do you go about building out position groups?
It all depends on exactly what we have in the building and then what we're trying to recruit to. For instance, I give you an example. Other places I've been, we haven't always had the quarterback style we wanted. So that means we probably err more on running the football. Then one year we may have had a great quarterback and receiver play, so we end up throwing the football more. Really, the style of system, what's unique about it, it fits whatever the personnel allows us to do. The reality is we all have contingent plans, which means that we understand that you may have this player, but he may get hurt. So you have to have the next man up mentality, and you have to be able to play to his strengths. So the offense is really cool. It can adjust to whatever the strengths and weaknesses of your team are that particular year.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because our next fan question is from Calvin. He wants to know what type of quarterback works best in your scheme.
Whatever one we can get. Right now, we're going to attack a lot of different style of quarterbacks. But the reality is, you want quarterbacks that are intelligent. Obviously you want them guys to have the athletic ability to do what you want them to be able to do. But the intelligence is really, really important because from a turnover standpoint, we mentioned about the situational football. All those things kind of play into the pot of making good decisions when the game's on the line, first, second, third, fourth quarter. You got to make sure that quarterback has a high football IQ and understand all those situations that you encounter.
And another fan question here, Coach, talking about the roster. With signing day coming up in February, how do you plan to approach it with the current state of college football?
Well, we're working our tails off right now, not only from the portal, but also too from the high school, and just trying to be smart as well. Understand that there's another round of this that happens in April from the transfer portal. So we got to do a great job of making sure that we're balancing the roster. You're going to see come across that we're going to hire a general manager, which is pretty normal right now in college football, for guys to make sure that the roster you're doing a great job of managing the roster as we move forward.
Well, Coach, that's a great segue into our next topic. We're joined by new Kennesaw State football head coach Jerry Mack here on Owl Nation Live, presented by BrandsMart USA. What are you looking for as a common denominator when you go about assessing staff hires?
First is character. That person has to be of high caliber character, somebody that when you're not looking, you know that you can still trust them. They're following the compliance rules. They're doing what they're supposed to do when they're away from the building as well. I think the second, as I always say, is smart people. I want to be around smart people that no matter what the situation is, you can teach them whatever you want them to do. Because sometimes you may have to adjust. You may come in one role, and then I want to be able to train and develop people in the building within the culture of what we do to end up taking higher roles and more responsibilities in our program. And work ethic. That's kind of how I made my entire living. I've been able to outwork some people in this business and outwork some teams. And that's what I want our team to understand. We can be a blue collar type industry and a blue collar type team, and we're going to outwork some people. And the coaches need to take that same mindset. So when I build the staff, I'm looking for those types of people that have all three of those traits.
Yeah, I know KSU fans are going to love to hear that. We've seen that have a lot of success. It doesn't matter the sport here at Kennesaw State when you have that blue-collar mindset.
It doesn't. It really doesn't.
As you go about building out this staff, how do you work to try to complement different talents of staff members, whether it's on one side of the ball or opposite sides of the ball?
It's really the same way you have to build a roster. The reality is you're not going to always get the best players at the defensive line or the corners or the linebacker position. So where you have deficiencies at, you have to make sure that you can overcome them at certain other positions because every year is different. It's the same way when you're building a staff and when you're dealing with people. Some coaches may be a little bit stronger on one side of the ball or one aspect of the game, and you have to make sure you complement that as you build the staff and you bring people in that can override that, and they can take that heat off that person, and they can help bring that person along as you're building that staff. So, once again, it goes back to people because it's a people business, it's a people industry, and just making sure that you spend a lot of time, as much time building that chemistry and building that camaraderie with your staff.
At the start of this interview, you talked about recruiting being really important. When you evaluate staff members, how can you tell if someone will be a good recruiter?
There are a lot of different ways. And you know what? There are a lot of different styles of recruit. People think that you have to be the loud recruiter or the one that talks all the time. That's not really what it's about. It's really about the connection with people. I do think recruiting is very similar to just like anything else. You have to work at it. That means you have to constantly stay on the phone. You have to constantly be building relationships. You have to find out who the champion is in that person's family, and you have to get to know the family. That helps you get to know the student athlete, and then also too those people that's outside of the family. Figuring out exactly who's going to help that person be influential in making decisions. But sometimes it's not mom and dad. Sometimes it's a track coach. Sometimes it's the baseball coach. Sometimes it's a peewee coach. Like there are so many people that touch these young student athletes as they go through their journey. Like being a good recruiter to me is just being relentless in how you go about attacking and learning as much information you can. And then being able to try to find whatever that is you can connect with the student athlete with, being able to hammer on that and try to connect with them at a high level.
Yeah, it's a big puzzle you got to put together.
It is. And that's where the work ethic part comes back in. You have to work at it just like you work at the X and O's part. You have to work at the recruiting.
Coach, got a few more questions for you, including a fan question here from Manzir. He's saying fan engagement is critical to building an environment at Kennesaw State. How important is it to connect with the student body and alumni community, and how big of a role do they play on game days in your mind?
Extremely. In the press conference, I kind of talked about it a little bit about just the entire KSU community getting on board. It isn't just my program or, the athletic director's program. It's our entire community program. I think the more everybody understands that even when you go out in the community, we all are recruiters or we all are people that can get this program to where we would need it to be. Packing that stadium is super important to me to make sure, it is the most hostile place in Conference USA to play. And I do think that with the people that we have on campus, with our fans, with our student body, it's my job to get them excited. It's my job to get out there on campus and try to do a great job of enticing and building that camaraderie and that culture on the campus to try to get those students to the game more.
in your previous time as a head coach at North Carolina Central. How did you go about that for fan engagement and building community in Durham?
We were all over the place. You know, we used to split our team up in different segments, and we would go out there. You know, in any event, whether it was going to the local elementary schools or whether it was going to high schools or whatever it may be, we had players always there at the hospitals. Anytime somebody asked us to do anything on campus, we would try to be engaging with it. We tried to make sure that our players were vocal and not also visible out there in the community to make sure people wanted to understand and wanted to know our players. We took an invested interest in our community, which made our community take an invested interest in us. And I think that's one of the keys you got to make sure happens to get that thing where you want it to be.
Coach, a message for Owl Nation right now for how they can be involved in this era of Kennesaw State football.
I think just giving us all the support possible from a standpoint of, you know, wearing Kennesaw State gear when we go out in the community. When we bring recruits and when we bring people, whether it's potential coaching candidates and things like that, when they go into any restaurant or when they go into any community event and they see that owl or that black and gold logo, I mean, that means a lot. That just shows you how much excitement, and that shows you how committed to the entire community is to making sure this program is successful. It goes back to being in alignment. When the community is in alignment with the football, with the basketball, volleyball, whatever that may be, then that's when success really happens, and that's when you can see a program just take off like we're about to.
Well, Coach, you had your family with you at the press conference. It was great to meet them. Here at the holidays and balancing everything that you're doing for Kennesaw State football, how do you plan to spend time with your family?
I know we're going to be everybody's going to be there for Christmas. I know we'll have mom, dad, in-laws. Everybody's going to be around, so it's going to be a great 3 or 4 days. I get the chance to spend with them and hug on them and kiss on them, and then it's going to be time to go back to work. But it's going to be exciting to see. We're going to do a little traveling as well, just to make sure the kids get a chance to touch a lot of family during that time as well.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us today on Owl Nation Live, presented by BrandsMart USA. A fantastic first interview. Looking forward to more, and wishing you and the new Kennesaw State staff best of luck here in 2025.
Thank you so much.
For Jerry Mack, I'm Nolan Alexander. This has been Owl Nation Live, presented by BrandsMart USA.
My goodness. Oh, my goodness.